So today's episode features a name that our first-time listeners probably already know.
Mostly because they're a fan and they clicked on the link because they saw said name.
Right, they were like, oh, this person, I want to check it out. But for our longtime listeners, let's set a little bit of the stage. He is a multi-time kart racing champion. He was a driver for Red Bull Racing in Formula 1, as it were, then turned his attention to NASCAR and then IndyCar, and then more recently has become a 3-time X Games gold medalist and a 4 times champ in the sport of rallycross. His name is Scott Speed, and Scott, welcome to the Gravel Lot.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
That's awesome. We've been trying to work on this for a while. You and I have a little bit of a history, but for those people who are listening and wondering what is the Gravel Lot about, and for those who listen a lot, is what is Scott Speed all about? I think
race cars. What about race cars?
Yeah, this is about to be like the confluence of where race cars meet bikes. So I think kicking this off is we like to ask all of our guests this first question, and it's how did bikes come into your life? Were they part of your childhood growing up? And like, how did that fit into kind of you growing up in California?
No, bikes weren't a part of my life at all until I was 19 and I headed off to Europe to go race over there with Red Bull. And my manager that I had at the time, that I had met to sort of help me through like the process of moving over to Europe and becoming a professional race car driver, he was a master's cyclist. And so the next thing I know, I'm putting on these really tight pants. I think it's hilarious. I think it's ridiculous. And I'm riding a bike. And then over there as an athlete for Red Bull, you're doing so much training. And a lot of the training is really low aerobic, zone 1, zone 2 running and cycling. So I just happened to get into it that way. And whenever my manager was around, we'd go ride bikes. And I got to ride bikes with a lot of cool people. Probably the coolest thing that I got to do on a bike was my manager was friends with Floyd Landis. And so the year that he won and then got disqualified from the tour, that March, we were riding bikes together in California. And I can remember like it was yesterday being at Magny Cours driving in Formula 1. And then like after every one of my practices, I'd hurry up with my debrief and I'd run to the TV to see how he was doing in the tour. So that was a really cool experience.
That's cool. Like, I mean, you got to see a lot of really neat stuff in your professional racing career and still do get to see all that sort of stuff. But those sort of relationships that kind of pop up from like, why the heck would you have bumped into Floyd Landis?
Well, there's just
if it wasn't for,
there's opportunities you get that you're just not afforded any other way.
Yeah, it's you get to meet a lot of cool people and see a lot of cool things. That's I was very fortunate, and I think that's what I can remember most of my time in the big leagues and what I cherish the most.
So at that time, was it? You're talking about Zone 1 and Zone 2, and for anyone of our regular listeners listening to this, everybody knows how exciting those rides are of going slow and doing very low aerobic load work. Like, was this something that you found that you had a passion for at the time, or was it just part of the protocol of just doing it?
Hated it with a capital H. But the facility we had to train at in Austria was second to none.
Yeah, if the Austrians are like, now, Scott, you must get on this bike and do the work. You're there. And that's what you're doing, man.
Dude, they pricked my ear probably 20 times a day. It was a lot of the stuff we were doing was all lactate based, so all keeping things way below your 2.0 millimole threshold and just really becoming efficient at burning fat. Because as a race car driver, and honestly, I believe like this is for life as well. Life is an endurance sport. You want to be burning fats, not sugars. And for a race car driver, that's important because those sugars really help with the concentration and your focus. So when you're driving the car, you don't want to be, even if your heart rate's elevated and you're working really hard, you want to be fully burning fats and being, as fit as you can be. What we learned was I can do a lot of cycling and running, and that helps. But at the end of the day, the fitness that I had in a race car was second to none because I drove my whole life. So like even without cycling or running, I could get in a race car and it was just easy because I had done those very specific moves for so long.
Yeah.
So my body was already kind of adapted to it. And as it turned out, after doing, many years of that, I learned a lot about training, and I'm super grateful because now when I got back to America, cycling is something that I actually started doing, which is crazy because I wasn't into it near as much when I had the opportunity to ride like with guys like Floyd and go to the tour. And now that I'm back home in America and I have time on my hands, like I love cycling. And
You're like Floyd. Can you send me some
Dude.
product? Right? Wait, is this
I'm
banned
like, man.
substance? I don't know, but if that's a thing, now you've found a passion for that. How did that happen? Did you just say, I need to be doing this for myself, or did you get reconnected with it when you came back to the States?
Me and some buddies that were in NASCAR at the time started cycling, and right around that time, a couple other people started trying to become more fit in NASCAR, let's say. And it kind of became trendy. And cycling for me was just something I was good at naturally. And it's probably because I have horrible posture and I'm very quad dominant. So I was just on a bike. I was just good. And so I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Well, and with all of that lifetime of driving, and this is something that I was always amazed. And when you and I met, I was riding a lot at the time, and you hadn't really been. But I was always amazed at, Scott, what is your regular resting heart rate?
Oh, I mean, now after my accident, it's probably 15 higher. It's just 15 higher across the board.
But it's still.
When I was training, my resting heart rate is 36 or something.
Dude, are you alive?
Right. So
it's genetics. I just have a big heart.
Add that to poor posture, quad dominant. And the other interesting thing is what happens in the heat of the moment in a race car. What would you say that your heart rate is at that point as well?
Oh, it doesn't do anything. My heart rate in the race car is unusually low. It's only really affected by temperature. So I did a Formula E race with Andretti, and they hooked us all up to monitors. And before the start of the race, this is all on TV. Before the start of the race, I think my heart rate was maybe 120 beats a minute, like on the line getting ready to go. One of the other drivers was at like 160, and the announcer was at like 170. Oh my gosh.
Well, I get that. Look, we speak for a living, or sort of. It's a meager living at best, but and I get it. I get excited when I'm on the mic and I'm having these conversations. But that's some ice in the veins, man. That's impressive.
It's just knowing myself and knowing that when I'm in a race car, I'm trying to make good decisions, not emotional ones. So I've always just kind of focused on that, and I don't really, it just doesn't really affect me. To be fair, though, it's the same in real life, though. Like, there's been times when we've been on bike rides, and you'll be on a bike ride with your buddies, and all my buddies took all the data really serious. We all knew exactly where our heart rates and our powers were, etc. And like a dog would come out to the side of the road and be chasing us, and I would feel like, oh my gosh, like that fight or flight sensation, but my heart rate never moved. And everybody else would be like up 20 beats a minute.
Yeah, I'd be up 20 beats, 60 beats a minute because I'm scared and trying to get away from the dog,
exactly.
And I do not have the stamina. But that I think that's neat that you see that reproduce in an interesting way, and you can still kind of look at that data. I think that a lot of cyclists really are impassioned by looking at their data and figuring that sort of stuff out. So when you were coming back and approaching cycling again, what do you feel like the initial barriers for you to get back into the sport were?
I'm not sure. None for me. I am, but I have such a unique life, right? I don't have a normal 9-to-5 job, so time is no problem. I can go ride when I want to. I know enough people in the industry where like getting bikes isn't a problem. I had no problems. I have a very privileged life in that sense, in a lot of sense, honestly, but especially in that one because I have the time to do it. And that's what is, hard about cycling is it takes time. You got to put your gear on. And that's that honestly, now that I've hurt my back and I have to ride inside, that's what's really kind of cool about Zwift is I shave, 15 to 20 minutes off of every ride because you don't have to put the helmet on.
Yeah.
And if you're me, you don't have to walk into the house 3 times because you forgot the water bottle, then you forgot your sunglasses. Like for me, it's a minimum of 3 trips back into the house before I actually leave.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. Like, all right, do I have damn it, I did not put on my heart strap. Now I got to get half undressed again.
Pants.
Yes,
pants
that's
are on.
me, 100%.
I generally get the pants, John. I generally get the pants.
So okay, of we're talking about having this privileged life, and I know that golf was also a part of this at a point, but like why did cycling come about if we're talking about trying to get the kind of athletic bang for the buck?
Okay,
why cycling over running or basketball or whatever?
Okay, well, cycling over running because I'm good at it. I have and this is going to change because, but right before I got injured, I'd started running because as someone who sits in a race car for a living, my hip flexors get short. I become quad dominant. My posterior chain doesn't work like it should. And now that I've broken my T7, I have to really focus on having good posture for the rest of my life. So when I start back into the training, I'm on the bike now, but I will do running first and make sure that I learn to use all the posterior stuff. But cycling purely because I was better at that than running. And I loved the idea of my body being an engine. And I love tweaking. Like I love trying to figure things out. So I love trying to figure out nutrition and training plans and how to make my body get better. And it was a healthy obsession for me because I get super obsessive, whether it's that or playing golf or playing my PlayStation. Like I'll go full speed at something, 100%.
For everyone out there, Google Scott Speed and iRacing real quick.
Yeah.
Just put this on pause, watch that, and then read some articles and come back.
Evidently,
full
esports
speed.
is really popular.
Apparently.
and they take it very seriously.
Yeah. So
now, to be fair, as far as gaming is concerned, if I'm doing racing, I take it like 0% serious. Because I've done racing my whole life. It's for fun to me.
And that's serious when you're doing it. You're in a physical car.
If I'm playing my PS4 and I'm playing Madden, I am taking that serious. I'm zoned in.
So this is also something that I know because you got this obsessive with golf, and I'm curious as to when you got into cycling, how did you start to dig into all of that data? What was you talked about being very kind of German before we were recording in terms of how you approach things, very type A. And I know you want to learn everything about everything all the time, but where did you start when you got into cycling?
How'd you start asking questions or finding that information out?
Well, I was lucky. I got to work with some of the best doctors in the world when it comes to training in Europe. So I knew a bit. And then it's just like anything. It's learning. It's, me, I like to go to someone who does, if I'm doing a sport, for example, cycling, right? I will go to the person that I know that I can talk to that has done it at the highest level, and I'll just ask them. So for me, it's talking to guys like Ted King or Tim Johnson, and being like, at the end of the day, like out of everybody I can call, these 2 guys are pro. I have my theories of what I think is right, but I'll ask you, like, how is this really? How does this apply? And I'll get a lot of advice. I got a lot of advice from Tim, actually. Tim Johnson helped out a bunch. And honestly, he was pretty instrumental of changing a big part of my life because I have ulcerative colitis. And I was never really ulcerative colitis is a disease of the large intestines and the colon. So basically it'll get inflamed and it'll start bleeding and it's no good. Bad news. So that had always kind of happened to me when I would train. But what Tim explained to me and what really fixed and changed my whole life was when I would train, I would also inherently start trying to eat a lot healthier and a lot more sort of vegan. So like if I would go through phases in life where I would start training, I would also start having kale smoothies. You know what I mean?
And those are not good for UC. No.
No, you know what I mean? But it's very counterintuitive. Please tell me the normal person that would think, hey, if you got ulcerative colitis, just try eating worse. Like it doesn't make sense.
You can, here's your prescription. You may only eat at McDonald's.
Yeah, it's
the
crazy.
Chris Horner diet.
But he explained basically that, look, I need to consider fiber and when I'm using it. And ever since then, like, it's been a game changer. But that was a very hard lesson to learn that I wouldn't have learned without him.
And that's interesting. You learned that through cycling in a space that that you wouldn't have expected to pick that
especially
information
after going
up.
through all of the medical testing.
Yeah.
and having
Dude,
all
I
of
mean, we're
those
talking
resources.
a decade of living with it and not knowing yet. You know what I mean?
So outside of Tim explaining to you how your body works, like a good doctor should, what do you think from cycling that you got from Tim that was like the biggest like kick in the pants or piece of information that like brought you to cycling or got you on that path?
I don't know. I don't think much, honestly. He would always just be like, look, go ride your bike. Don't focus so much on the details. Get hours in. You know, because I'm very detailed. Like, I want to make sure every minute I'm spending on the bike is the most productive. And he would always talk me off of the ledge and be like, dude, just go ride. Like, don't trip. Get hours.
But you still did that, right?
Yeah. I mean, and then I started learning. I learned. At the end of the day, too, I think it is a bit individual, and you have to learn about yourself. And you do enough time on the bike, and you look at it and you research enough, you end up learning what works for you. I'm not really the kind of guy that is good with having like a trainer just tell me what to do. Like, I need to know why I'm doing something. So in that sense, and the fact I'm naturally pretty lazy, I don't think I'd ever actually be a pro cyclist. Like, that life for sure is not me, but I've enjoyed myself tinkering with food and diet and training, trying to make myself faster at a very amateur level.
How do you think that playing with all of those things and like some of the realizations that you've come to through cycling has changed Scott as a person?
I don't think it's changed enough. I don't think I have changed since I was 15 years old, man.
Still the same kid.
I just have different obsessions, I'll call them.
But there's change in that. Like, how do you think those things have affected the way you go through life, right?
Okay, so the biggest thing that's changed in my life is not true. There's one big change is and I know it's because my kids. Like, I grew up, I got home off not the bus, but my mom would pick us up from school in high school and middle school, and we'd go Taco Bell. I'd have 3 soft tacos and a Mountain Dew, like basically every day. Like, there was 0% nutritional or training advice in my life until I left to Europe at 19. And I fought a lot of it at first. And I think what has changed the most in my life is I very much know how important what you put in your body is, and the fact that you're active. And to be honest, more than cycling, what's changed or what's made me realize how important being active is than anything is breaking my back and not being able to move for 2 months and going through that depression. Because I mean, that's real talk.
So yeah, let's go down that. August 16th, 2019. You're leading the ARX points driving Subaru.
That's American Rallycross.
Yes, American Rallycross. At the Nitro World Games, and I remember seeing previews of the course and even announcers who were normally excited by the kind of insanity that comes with Rallycross and the Nitro Games specifically. I think even they were a little intimidated by the course that was built. So kind of walk us through that day, practice, heat race, all that stuff.
Okay, so events like this, whether it's the X Games or this event, they're sort of one-off events, and they're not super organized. They're all kind of like that. And the course we were on was okay. The issue was, dirt in a race car can change quite a bit with moisture, and the track was getting really dusty, and we basically just ran in the dust for all of practice. We got maybe, let's say, 3 practice sessions all in the dust, learned the track, learned how hard you could hit all the jumps, etc. Pretty dialed in. And then they opened it up for qualifying, and that was still the same. And then we go into the first round of heat races, and right before the heat races, they water the track. And this will change the grip surface a bit. But when you haven't run on that changing condition, you don't really have a good idea of it, I guess. And we started my heat race. I took the lead. These races are raced on time, so you can't just kind of cruise. You're running basically 4 laps as fast as you can. And the first lap, it wasn't they have this really big 100-foot gap jump, right? And that thing's a cakewalk. That's literally cruise control. I didn't even think about that. But they had this really steep, let's call it like a really, really short, tall tabletop. And it was right out of a hairpin. And we were coming out of that hairpin basically as hard as you can, grabbing, I think we got to like third gear up the face of the jump. And you would jump and kind of land on top of the tabletop and then roll down the downside. And then in my race, though, they watered the track, and that area of the track was a bit better than it was before.
Yeah.
And the first lap of the race, I landed on top of the tabletop. And then the second lap of the race, as the track, because they literally just watered it, as it was getting more tacky, it launched me a little further, and I downsided it. And I downsided it on lap 2. I downsided it on lap 3. And on lap 4, when I came up there, like right when I hit the face of the jump, it just like gripped up a ton. And I basically, from the time I hit the face of the ramp till I left the ramp, I accelerated probably an extra 2 miles an hour, more than I was expecting or more than I had yet all weekend. And it just sent me over the landing ramp, and I landed from the sky to the flat, and chassis bottomed out, and my back crunched, and my T7 is now half the size.
So what? So you finished. And you get back to the pits, and then what happens?
No, I didn't get back. So I broke my back literally 200 meters from the finish line. So I landed. I knew I broke my back, but I stayed in the gas, grabbed another gear, and at least crossed the finish line. I wasn't going to quit. And then as soon as I crossed the finish line, I basically came to a stop as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And the problem with those cars is they're made for short races, and they're made for speed. And they're very, very hot. It was extremely hot that day. I couldn't stay in the car. Like I would have passed out almost immediately. It was probably 140 degrees in there. So I opened the door, and I kind of rolled out of the car and just lied flat on the ground, and basically had, how you feel like when you got the wind knocked out of you? It was basically like that, but the worst possible feeling, and like a 10 out of 10 pain in the back on top of it.
Oh,
and
boy.
I basically lied there until the ambulance came and hauled me away. And the next, say 4 days were like the worst 4 days of my life.
Oh, I mean, I've seen some pretty gnarly wrecks. That's got to be super, super scary.
I mean, that was the most scared I've been in my life by far, because I couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
It's like it's like having the wind knocked out of you. I mean, literally to this day, right now, it hurts to take a full breath. Like that's literally the last thing that is recovered. I don't know why. It's strange, but like it was weird. It was wacky, but not the fear of not being able to take a breath. That was wild. I don't want to do that anymore.
Well, yeah, you've had a pretty charmed career in terms of your motorsport life. You've had some crashes, some knocks, things
No, I
like
don't.
that.
No, I crash. So I am not the crasher. I am like the calculator.
Right.
Like not the risk taker. So
Right, but I mean, you've like 30 years of racing. Like you've had some knocks, but like not the not the spiral that some people go through. So for you, there's a lot to process in that of like what's actually happening, and you and I have talked about this a lot, kind of via text message back and forth. Yours was your T7, so tell our listeners where specifically that's located.
It's basically between your shoulder blades.
Okay. So yours was that. I had a very similar injury in my L5, which is right at the base of your spine, right above your pelvis. Yours was compressed more than mine, but fortunately for me, mine wasn't pressing on things like, my lungs and my airway and things like that. So, but to what you were saying, like the idea of always having to stay strong for the rest of your life, worry about your posterior chain, all of that stuff. That's like from day one of the surgeon actually diagnosing for me what was going on. He was like, this is now the rest of your life, and this is what you have to look forward to. And like, for me, I know a lot of the realizations that were hitting over the next 3, 6, whatever months were like, it was my first experience with feeling like I was actually like not bulletproof, because it happened when I was 18 years old, and it was my first, like, I'd broken bones and stuff like that, but this was like messing with my spinal cord, and my legs would go numb and just weird stuff. So what was, like, you said it's the worst 4 days of your life, and I'm sure that everybody can understand, like, pain-wise, of trying to figure out what's going on, halo, all of those, like, items that are going through. Like, what was your process that you went through of understanding what, like, first understanding what happened, and then starting to process what went on, and then trying to kind of come to grips with it while you're just in, like, horrendous pain?
Well, know where to start. I mean, the first day is just pain, and I was in so much pain that I relinquished all decision making to my very good friend who was spotting for me, and my cousin who happened to be in town, until Amanda got there the day after. But for the first 2 days, like, I wasn't able to make a decision, or actually for the first 4 days. So I knew, like, I was in so much pain, I like shut down.
Yeah.
And my brain wasn't functioning. Like, and so people were talking, and I was like, you're going to have to, well, cool, whatever. I mean, I don't know, like, someone else make a call, you know,
find an adult.
Like, yeah,
like,
it was messed up.
Yeah. You're just trying to maintain at that point.
Yeah, it's your brain, you know, copes with it. I guess. The thing about this kind of pain, though, is like medicine didn't work at all. It did basically nothing. And that was like the biggest thing. Like, what? Because I just assumed, I'm lying there on the ground and like, okay, I'm going to get in the ambulance. Sweet. They're going to start giving me meds. And the guy, you know, puts an IV in me. He's like, all right, we're going to give you some fentanyl. And I'm like, sweet. I know that name. So I recognize that. So this must be good, right? I've heard of this. People, you know, so sweet. And they gave me that. And I'm like, 10 minutes go by, and I'm like a 10 out of 10 pain still. I'm like, yo, like, they can tell, like, I can't breathe. Like, I'm full panic mode. It did nothing. And he's like, all right, well, we're going to give you some morphine now. And I'm like, sweet. Because I remember Saving Private Ryan. And when they give you the little morphine, you're out. You're good.
You're good to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Negative. Absolutely nothing. They gave me the morphine. 0. 10 out of 10. Nothing. Like, I maybe started feeling more loopy, but pain did not touch the pain. It did not
fix the pain, yeah.
Then they gave me Dilaudid, which I guess is like heroin. And that finally took me from like a 10 to an 8. But mostly, I think it just fucking brought me in and out of consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, I was basically totally mush at that point.
Yeah.
But pain was still there. Like, there's no pain blocker for screwing up your spine. It is. And then what it taught me is, like, you know, as a kid, you know, you see the older people, either parents or friends or cousins, like, or uncles, and, you know, they got back pain, right? They always talk about back pain, all that. And like, dude, I have a full different respect level for you guys now. Like, chronic back pain is like, it's just ridiculous. I don't wish that on anybody.
As you went through this, and I mean, you're still in this process now. You know, we were talking before.
Man, I'm way out of the woods.
Yeah, you are.
I'm finally way out.
You are, but you're still kind of in the recovery process, right? Like, you've got, you know, got to do all your. You're doing your PT. You know, you're saying you can't take a full breath yet, but as you've gone through this process, what has this done to realign how Scott's looking at his career, but B, the things that are around him? I mean, you had to know this sort of Damocles was out there, but what has this done to your worldview?
I don't know. I think that I've been very good at having a very good grasp of reality and life. Let's say like the things that I've taken that were important to me in my life haven't changed, but I think I'm kind of unusual in that area. Like, I got to see a lot, and I got to be around a lot of very wealthy and, whether it's Monaco or traveling the world, like, I've seen so much to learn already for me what's important. So I don't think anything really changed in that perspective. But what was difficult is when you go through the point of time where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to drive again. And that's a big deal for me because that's still how I make a living. So that part was like, I guess, difficult to know. All right, well, what if I can't drive again? What do I want to do? But I wouldn't say it changed my life at all or any of my perspectives on things. Family's always been super important, and I don't think any of that has really changed. And I wouldn't say that my thoughts on racing would change either, because I'm already a super conservative driver. Like, this was a freak incident. There's nothing I can do about this. So, I don't know if it really changed actually that much.
For you, what was the most difficult process of this? Was it 5 months? What's been the most difficult mental challenge of this time since the middle of August?
Oh, it was for sure deciding if to have surgery or not. Because the second day I got home, you start getting opinions from people, and that's all great until there's two opinions that are totally opposite. And then you're like, are you serious? Like, I've asked 3 doctors. One says I'm going to be ready to go in 2 months. The other one says, if you're lucky, you won't need surgery and you'll be ready in maybe 8 months. And the other says you need surgery right now. You have I guess, an unstable fracture in your back. And if you move it the wrong way, you can be paralyzed for the rest of your life. He's like, I could have done without that last one. Like, I could have done without that phone call, because that was a really, really hard one.
So how do you navigate that process then? If you have these 3 differing opinions of professionals in this area that are telling you 3 wildly different facts that could change, the future of your life.
Ultimately, what made me decide is the doctors that I have here that I could see, which were the only ones that told me not to do surgery, actually. They were the same guys that did Tony Stewart broke his back out in the sand dunes. And when he broke his back, he got on his little private plane and flew all the way back here to see these guys. So I'm like, he probably...
That speaks volumes right there.
I was like, I'm kind of sold on that. And then when I talked to them, they just made I could logically understand all their points. And they took a CT scan of me there, and they were looking at it, the real data present, and what they explained to me, just I could reconcile all the logic and where they were coming from. So I said, cool. And what they said basically was, there's 3 reasons to have surgery. 1, if the bone's touching the spinal cord and it's causing, your thing to go, your stuff to go numb, then you got to have surgery. If it's unstable, then you need to have surgery. And if the pain is too much, you have to have surgery. And the pain being too much, 2 days out of the first 5, if they were open for surgery and they would have told me I have a 50% chance of survival, I would have said, sign me up, knock me out right now.
Yeah.
That is a fact. That's how dark I got.
Yeah.
But I'd wake up and finally get through the night, because not sleeping for a long time that'll screw with you. But when I finally got up in the morning and I'd finally make it to the office at 10 a.m., I'd be like remotivated, be like, nah, I can deal with the duck. I'm a man. I'll tough it out. And it would just repeat the cycle the next day. Wake up 2 a.m. screaming like, this is ridiculous. We're going to the hospital. And my wife, bless her heart, would be like, okay, well, you can't just go to the hospital. They're not just going to give you morphine. So
that's not how this works, Scott.
So realistically,
they're going to think you have a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would have surgery look like for this?
It was basically putting a plate in, screwing a plate into the vertebrae on top and below the broken one, and just taking the pressure off the broken vertebrae, which is basically shattered. And I personally never wanted the surgery, because for me, there was always a risk that, you don't come out of surgery.
Right.
And for me, that wasn't worth, even if it was a small risk, that wasn't worth potentially being paralyzed later in life. Like, okay, I would rather potentially be paralyzed later and just be really careful for the rest of my life than potentially, not make it out of surgery. And the other thing was, I'm pretty good friends with Robert Wickens. And obviously he had a super, super bad crash, and he's in way worse shape than me. And he's had, at that time, he had already had 2 infections from screws that they've put into his body. Now, they weren't in his spine, they were in his foot, I believe. But like, it's like, yeah, you got the infection as a risk, and then you got the risk of, you don't make it out of there. And the whole not making out of there to me really rang true, because like after 2-3 days of laying on your back, my ankles were so swollen. I'd be like, yeah, I can totally see how you could get a blood clot doing this.
Right.
This is really bad. Like my ankles were like triple the size they've ever been. So it's like, I really didn't want to do the surgery. So honestly, the fact that the doctor here was like, yeah, you can try not to, I was all on board with it.
Okay, so walk us through after you kind of get out of the really dark woods. What's your recovery process look like so far?
It's basically being in a brace I'm out of the brace now since like a week, but it was basically being in a brace all day except for sleeping and showering. Sleeping is like the biggest milestone you can make. And the problem is for me, with my broken back, I couldn't lay down. So laying down and falling asleep was, for one, is a 2-person job. My wife had to I'd have to lay on my side, and she'd be shoving towels underneath my rib cage and trying to get my spine like super straight, because it just hurt all the time, and I couldn't lay on my back. So eventually, when I'd finally find a position that was like the pain level would drop to like a 4, my brain would just shut off. I'd be asleep literally immediately. But then I'd wake up an hour later, like in pain, and have to go get up and sit in a chair. There's like a chair that I had in my house is like literally the only thing I could go to that would get rid of the pain. And that was for the first like month, I would say. And then once I started being able to sleep again, then everything, at least I could think. And and then it was basically resting for a while. I mean, I think maybe 1 month in, I started going on a walk, and that was depressing, because literally leaving the house and walking around the block, I mean, I'm out of breath. Like, oh my gosh. Like, there's this little hill coming back up to my house, and I would literally look at the hill like it was Alpe d'Huez. Like, all right, I got to save my energy right here. I'm about to go up this hill. It was ridiculous. It was crazy.
You've been going through this recovery process. Now you're out of the brace. It's for a week, which is awesome. You're sleeping
congratulations.
You're sleeping through the night.
Yep.
He's finally our baby's finally sleeping through the night.
Yeah.
That stuff's all moving in the right direction. How has this process been with you and the family? Like, how have they?
It's been great, man. We let's say we redid the kitchen, we redid the mud room, we redid my master bath.
You've been doing all the work, right?
No, I mean, I can't lift anything, but I can't not do anything either. I put a golf simulator in my basement.
Project manage.
Yeah, I'm actually currently doing the golf simulator. The screen should be up later tonight.
Nice.
So it's just doing I just did a lot of stuff in the house. And then my 2 girls play soccer, so I'm like super soccer coach now. It's been fun. Honestly, I'm really lucky. I'm blessed to have a great family.
It's interesting how sometimes when you have, you have a hectic schedule as a driver, you're all over the place, a lot of travel, a lot of moving around, a whole bunch of that sort of stuff going on. And I know family is important to you, and obviously you make that a priority, but you have this strange thing happen to you that is, really a check on your mortality and a whole bunch of other things in your life and your career. But when you do have that strong structure of community around you, you get this opportunity to really lean into that to some extent, and make the most out of those relationships when they're there. And it sounds like obviously your wife's been a big support for you, and your kids have as well. But yeah, like you're like, okay, I'm not just going to sit here and complain. I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff that I've been would have loved to have been doing if I had more free time.
I don't. So I never, through this whole process, really, I've never felt sad, ever. Like, not any part of this did I feel like, oh man, this is terrible. Never. Like, I've always had this really screwed up personality type that it does not matter what situation I'm in, I'll be happy. I'll find a way. And so that mostly leads me just to not trying very hard at life. But like, like I never felt sad during this ever. Like even if I could never race again, and that thought process came about a lot, and I talked about it a lot with my wife. Like I didn't care really. Like I was happy with however it was going to turn out. And now as it turns out, I can race. And the cool thing about that is like I'm super fired up to like make a comeback. So I feel like energized. So if anything, I feel lucky like throughout all this. And that sounds crazy. I don't know who would say that, but I feel honestly, this whole situation, I feel lucky. I've learned a lot. I've got to experience things that they're bad, but not many people get to experience it and walk out of it basically to a point where I should be relatively back to 100% eventually. So it's it's fortunate.
I can look at my co-host face and I know what he wants to say, and I know what a lot of our listeners are thinking, and they want to call bullshit on the fact that you weren't ever sad through this process, but
never.
I know you, and that's not how you're wired. You're wired to move on to the next thing. You're wired very much like a race car driver should be wired, in the sense that made a mistake, okay, learn it, move to the next thing, like whatever the next thing is. But I'm curious as to what you think about you allows you to experience what you went through and not go through bouts of depression or questioning why this happened to me or any of those things. What do you think it is? What do you think it is about your makeup or your history or anything like that?
No idea, man. I used to think that everybody else is screwed up, but I've learned that I'm the weird one. I don't know. I get bored easily doing the same thing, I guess. And I only say that because you're talking to the guy that, most people in my shoes never would have left Europe or Formula One.
Sure.
And most people in my shoes would have stayed in NASCAR or tried harder to stay in NASCAR. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, to me, like I need change. Like I like things that are moving and being different. And I like things to be new and exciting. And what it is never really matters to me. It's just the new experiences and learning new things.
I feel that. I mean, like about every 5 years, I'm like, all right, I'm bored of what we've been doing. We need to do something different. We must move on. What is next? And I think that's constantly a quest that people who are seekers are all about. They are looking to see what's next in the world for them, like, and whether that's professionally or personally or whatever. So, okay, Scott, what's next? Obviously, the comeback's coming. We're aware of that, but what's next for you? What are you up to?
I don't know. Right now,
aside from putting together a golf simulator. I know you got to do
I will say this. This is funny, but there was actually one thing that I was concerned about the most. When I came home, I had a brand new 60-degree Taylor. One of my wedge came in the mail and was sitting there. And when I realized that I might never actually be able to swing a golf club again, that hit me, because racing isn't something I'm going to do my whole life. But like golf was always something I planned to do forever. Like I can do that. Like I hope my kid, like my oldest, likes golf and we can go play golf. I can do that as an old man. And like that not being around, because I was pretty good at golf, that kind of sucked. The contemplating that, I guess.
It's interesting that it was golf. Like I get what you're saying.
I know,
like,
it's so that's
no, but it's interesting. But I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand, right? Because most people's dreams are, I want to go race cars professionally.
People want to look at somebody as one thing. That
Correct.
They are that Scott Speed is a race car driver. That's it.
No, that's not.
No, Scott Speed's just a big kid.
Yes,
who has been
accurate.
There's 100%. I've just been enabled to do things ridiculously because I was lucky enough to be good enough driving race cars that I made a living doing it. Simple as that. But it's really like I'm literally just a big kid. And I at least was smart enough to marry someone that was very much an adult, very much mature, and the opposite of me in a lot of ways. So, things work in my life. But realistically, I'm just a 15-year-old kid still.
Do you think that more of us should embrace our 15-year-old kid?
Man, it's there's two ways to look at it, in my opinion. You either need to want less or do more. Meaning you either need to make $100,000 a year to have what you want, or you need to be okay not having as much and make $30,000 a year. And I've seen both of those people, and they're both the same happy level. I'm the type of person that would rather just want for less than work hard, than have to earn more. Does that make sense?
Well, you've lived both sides of that equation.
That's a big part of it, because I grew up in the hood, and I made it to a place that was pretty exclusive, and I almost prefer my life in the hood over the latter.
Is why? Like, why is there a quality in that
it's just
that you
people.
value?
Yeah, people. I don't like I'm not like I said, I'm not one that's out there hustling. I'm not a hustler. I'm not like a guy that's gonna nickel and dime anybody. I'm like literally the world's worst businessman. But I just like people being real and honest with each other. I'm honest to a fault. I say way too much what I think. I'm the opposite of a politician. And ultimately, what I've found in life is that people that are really wealthy are just sociopaths. It's like, I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, so it's not the type of person that I like to be around. No, it's not. I can't paint everybody, obviously, with that brush. I'm just saying, like, what I've noticed in my life from my experience.
I like how you backed the truck up for us.
Yeah,
we didn't even need to do it.
Yeah, no, but you're right. Like,
then that's, to be fair, that's kind of what I love about cycling. That's another thing I love about cycling is all my cycling buddies, dude, they're down to just put their bike in the back of the car and go camp out in the woods, and they don't need anything. And that's the point. At least one of my really good cycling friends, that's how he is, and we really get along.
Well, it's interesting because I think this is something that we always hear when we're talking with people who are attracted to bikes, and this is you. There is an honesty to riding a bike that is so pure because it's you and the engine that you built or made.
Yes, it's all you.
And a thing trying to do something else. The road keeps you honest, all of those things.
And you can only ball out so hard on a bike. Like even on the like carbon everything, lightest everything, it probably costs half of what the like average midsize sedan costs in America.
Correct.
Like, so even when you're just like balling out of your mind on like a 14-pound super bike, like it's still not rolling in a G-Wagon type.
But even then, does that matter when?
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't. Because
no, you can't. You
I
can't
was
buy
just
it.
laughing at this conversation.
So I mean, we had this conversation with Anthony Clark, where Anthony Clark almost beat the pants off J-Pow on like a garbage bike on a Windsor in Vans that he had put clipless cleats on. Like, this is the bike is a leveler, and what it does is creates that honesty, but the other piece of it is it creates community, and it sounds like you've found that in the bike and the people that you ride with, and found something that you can really connect with there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's, for me, it's the very small circle of people that I have in my life. The cyclists that I do have, they're just awesome people. And whether that's because they're cyclists or not, I don't know. But certainly a lot of my good friends are in that community.
All right. So before we finish, we're talking about community and we're talking about being connected. We have to talk about the elephant that I know that is in your room. Let's talk about Zwift.
Zwift, yeah.
So,
I have Zwift.
Yes. Talk to us. Talk to the Pebbles about Zwift, Scott.
Here's why I like Zwift is I'm a super competitive guy with my buddies, obviously. And Zwift is like having all your Stravas, Zwift is like having everyone you know in cycling live in your neighborhood. So when you go out there and take a KOM off your buddy, typically that's only the guys that live close to you. You know what I mean? But in Zwift, everybody lives in the same neighborhood. So everybody has done the volcano climb. and all my buddies, we all have times up the Alpe du Zwift. So it's like, to me, it's cool because it's more competitive, and there's no weather in drafting.
Can you still, if you take a corner, can you run someone off?
I think now in the gravel section, they opened up a gravel part where you put your phone on your bike and you actually steer your bike. So that's the next level.
Yeah,
it's coming.
on mountain bikes too. Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. Then we can run. So then now that becomes more like iRacing, and we can like get you kicked off that platform for a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, and it's I think we have to talk about it because Doug and I, we've been kicking this around for a while, and I think at the beginning of the year we're going to officially do it, and we're going to do a gravel lot Zwift group ride once a week during the
so easy to do,
the not awesome winter months wherever you are. But regardless, for us, it's about kind of exactly what you're saying is our listeners are all over the globe. But on Zwift, they're all in the neighborhood, and we can all go do the group ride.
Yep. Exactly.
I like that.
I think the last thing that we have to figure out how to do on Zwift is make, the voice and the chatting easier.
Yes.
Or there needs to be a better way to have everybody in a group vocal chat.
Yes.
So, or like a group conference call. There needs to be a way to have that. But once you have that, then it's game on. I mean, it's.
Yeah, because
it'll get there.
Like in looking into it, we found some ways where you can do like Zoom chats or Skype chats or something like that. Because right now it's in Zwift, you just like have a keyboard and type things out. And
I can
text to
barely
each other.
ride on a trainer. Like I can type on a keyboard, but I can't type anyways. This is going to be very bad.
And I think it especially comes in handy if you are trying to do like the group ride, and it
you're
becomes
gonna
like
have to do that.
a flex off of everybody trying to like
town line sprint
and measure body parts. But if it's like for what we're wanting to do, we're just wanting to do like a casual group ride that's like doing base miles. So it's going to be super chill. So we should be able, and the whole point of it is to be able to talk and interact with each other while we're riding bikes.
Agreed, but here's my concern. Are we going to get one of those like 13-year-old kids who's figured out how to hack the game and like all the cheat codes and shows up on our group ride and just trash talks all us old men like they do in all those combat games?
Probably.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can always hook a motor up to your thing.
Blender,
you know what I mean?
right?
Or just say that you weigh like a quarter of what you actually
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, what's even worse than anything is like being the man on Zwift and you go out on a group ride and you get dropped. I mean, that's not worth. I mean, geez.
Just get dropped.
That'd be the worst
places.
thing ever.
It's easy.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
That's what I do. That's
like I don't know who you're trying to fool, but like my buddies, they know. We know.
We know. We've been out riding with you.
Right.
We know. We know what's up. Well, I mean, I think it is a good leveler, and I think it's a neat tool, and I think there's future in that for people to access cycling. People who may not have the capability or feel comfortable going out on the road to start with, and maybe it's a window to get them out riding their bike in other places as they build up either fitness or comfortability in some fashion.
Well, and you don't have to invest in the $2,000 Peloton bike and the $7 million Mexican villa to put your Peloton bike in.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, for me, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing now if it wasn't for Zwift, because I can't ride my bike looking at Trainer Road, and I can't ride my bike outside, and I can't run. So if it wasn't for that, I'd be even worse off.
Yeah.
Well, friends of the show, Zwift, will be contacting you for your endorsement here.
Nice.
We'll get a hold of them. We'll get a hold of them and see if we can. This episode brought to you not by Zwift.
Right.
Definitely not by Peloton. We did not get that endorsement for this episode. No, for sure. So, no, I think it's great, and I'm glad that it's become something that you can use as a tool in your recovery, and I think more people can do that, and I think that's great, and it's neat to see how cycling has remained a part of your life even through this kind of tougher point where you're dealing with some other things.
Yeah. Yep, I'm lucky for sure.
Well, we hope we get to see you out on the road riding with us sometime soon. We're gonna have to make a trip. We'll have to ride bikes when we do that.
Beautiful country. We do. We need to find something down there.
I know the spots. That is for sure. This is my area.
We got plenty of training to
Now,
do, John.
well, I say now would be the time to actually ride with Scott because we probably have a chance.
Yeah.
Oh,
we'll
it's
Scott
ugly.
has no. You
It
have
is so ugly right now.
you have no body weight though. That's where like your power to weight does not require a lot of power to be a really really.
So
Yeah,
hold on.
well.
So Scott, did you and John ever get to ride bikes together?
I don't think so. No.
He is an awesome wall. Like you can just
He's a good
sit
wall.
on his
Just
wheel.
sit right behind
you
him.
just
Yeah.
sit on his wheel and get sucked along. It's fantastic. And he's got an engine. He can just go for hours out front. And he's just bullheaded enough that he'll sit out front and not let you take pulls. It's so much fun.
I just trying to protect my teammates
That's what he's
for
trying
that
to
town
do.
line
Yeah.
sprint.
For that town line sprint when we all dust past you. No, it's. I
Yeah.
mean, but we'll have to make this happen. We got to put it together. And even if not, we're gonna have you come join us on a Zwift ride. Even if we can't
Yeah,
get out
dude,
there,
for
we'll have to
sure.
make
For
that
sure.
happen. So maybe Pebbles.
Right. Well,
Celebrities Zwift rides with the gravel lot.
Yeah,
have
we'll
to figure
get him
that
like
out.
Yeah.
a special jersey or something so people know where he is.
I'm all black. I have
All
black
black.
socks, black jersey, black literally everything
Somehow that
on there.
doesn't.
And
He's the
when
guy
you
hitting
when
a
you're
100-foot
feeling
gap jump over the entire peloton.
and when you're feeling frosty and you want to give the old Alp de Zwift a try, 50 minutes and like 13 seconds is the time to beat.
So I don't think.
Unfortunately,
so
it came
we're-
up just short.
We're both coming into this without accounts, so I think we have to get to a certain level before Alp de
Yes,
Zwift
you
opens
do.
up.
Yes, and that's like, fortunately, the first couple go by pretty quick. But yeah, you need some time before you unlock it. I think it's level 12, but it's not that bad.
All right.
Dude, this is gonna be fun.
So
It's
50,
like
50
But dude, the
minutes
Alp de
flat.
Zwift is like a legit replica of the
Yeah.
real thing. And when you ride that, and like I did, you realize how much of a big boy climb it is. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's like it is 9% for an hour. Like,
oh, bar.
it's crazy.
Well, see, that's
Can, I,
that's
can I
not-
hit pause and
I was
get
gonna
off
say,
my
that's-
get off my bike?
That's not my landscape. My
Stretch.
landscape is the flat stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, there's
I'll do
lots
it.
of flats there
I'll-
too.
now that you gave me a target, I'm gonna go chase.
There
the
it
target.
is.
Yep.
There it is.
That's all he needs. Sometimes all you need to do.
Yeah, and I'm lucky that my buddy that lives around here is 50, and he smokes me still. He's a light. He weighs like 135, and he's a freaking mean machine.
That's
So
that's-
I always have something to shoot for.
You know what that's called, Scott?
What's that?
That's called old man strength.
Yeah, he's got old
It's
man
a,
strength,
it's a,
but
it's a
he.
trademarked. It's a trademark name.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for it to come in. I'm hoping 42's here, and I'm like, it's around the corner,
Any
isn't
day
it?
now.
Any day. I'm gonna wake up and just like flip a Volkswagen and be like, yeah, I'm old man strength finally. I'm hoping.
That's
I'll
awesome.
call and let you know, so I can let you know when it's coming.
Right.
So, well, this has been awesome, man. What a fun chat. It's been good to get you on and finally get a chance to connect and hear a little bit about your story, especially your story of recovery and what you've been up to in that space, as well as your connection to cycling and how it does bring you joy and all that sort of stuff. So we appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So with every week, just like, and I guess I'm gonna get to ask the question this week because
of course you are.
I asked the opener question.
Yep.
So every week we ask our guests the same question, and that question is: if you could have the Pebbles, so we are all Pebbles in the gravel lot. If you could have the Pebbles remember one thing from today's chat, what would you like it to be?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, you.
Yeah, because you said a lot.
rem-
You've said a lot of really good stuff, and I'm curious. Like, if there's one nugget that you want that Scott wants to leave with the fans.
The most important thing to remember is that you shouldn't really pay too much attention to anything I say because I'm literally just a 15-year-old kid. I have no wisdom whatsoever.
Well,
So don't follow my advice.
I think there's some odd wisdom in that.
I think there is. I think that was unintentional wisdom.
Yeah.
Unintentional wisdom.
Accidental wisdom, yeah.
Well, this has been awesome, Scott. We really appreciate you taking the time. We're stoked that you were able to join us, and we look forward to chatting you again.
Yeah,
in the
thanks,
future.
man.
Thanks, buddy.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Have a good one, guys. 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 Have a good one, guys.